Okay, well, welcome everyone to Beecology Citizen Science. And we're so glad you're here. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mass Farm to School, and then Bobby's going to tell you a little bit about Mass Ag in the Classroom if you don't know about these organizations. We have plenty of resources available to educators and people interested in Farm to School. My name is Dinah Mack, and I'm the Education Program Manager for Massachusetts Farm to School. And Mass Farm to School works to strengthen local farms and fisheries and promote healthy communities by increasing local food purchasing and education at schools. And there's a lot of ways you can get involved in our organization. We have professional learning opportunities throughout the year, such as this one. We have opportunities for networking and meet and greets in person and virtual. We have different policy and advocacy opportunities in the farm to school movement. And we have also ways for educators to get involved through our Harvest of the Month program. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out to educators around the Harvest of the Month that has curriculum and resources, a history, current event of different crops. So you might want to get involved in that as well. And we have this spring a lot of opportunities to get your hands into a school garden. And so check out our website for different opportunities. And Bobby, do you want to introduce Mass Ag in the Classroom?
Sure. Hi, I'm Bobby Oles. I'm the president of the board of directors for Mass Ag in the Classroom. And our mission is to teach educators about agriculture so that they can share that information with their students and incorporate agricultural education into the curriculum in their classrooms. So things we offer for teachers, probably the two most important are workshops. We've been having a monthly virtual workshop and then in-person workshops early fall and in the summer. And we also have a mini grant program twice a year. You can apply, teachers can apply for a mini grant of up to $1,500 for agricultural projects within their classroom or their school. So those are really our two most popular things that we do. And then we support educators as much as we can when they do have a project going, trying to connect them with people that can answer their questions. That's about it.
Great, thanks, Bobby. Well, I'm so excited to introduce Maria Berríos, science teacher and science Olympiad coach at Auburn High School, and Jen Field, science department chair at Nipmuc Regional High School, for this Beecology Citizen Science workshop. I've been waiting for this workshop for months, and I can't wait to learn from Maria and Jen. So I'm going to stop sharing. And at any point during this presentation, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and I'm going to moderate the chat and let them know if there's questions. And you will have access to this recording, and the slide deck will be emailing it to you after this workshop for you to share and to use. It will also be on the Mass Farm to School website, and Mass Ag in the Classroom will have access to it as well. And thank you for being here. All right, Jen, I'm going to stop sharing.
Great, and I will start. Perfect. Can everyone see what I'm sharing? Yes, great. We were going to put this slide deck actually in the chat too, I believe. Yes, Maria, so that people could access it. We're going to go through this slide deck, and there's going to be some interactive parts. Hopefully we're going to get you folks out into some breakout rooms so that you can try some of the activities and lessons that Maria and I have found successful in our classrooms. Oops.
I just posted the link to the slide deck.
Perfect. Great. So this is just our agenda. While you folks are accessing this deck, hopefully on your own computers, Maria and I will be going through all of these different bullet points, again, telling you a little bit about the BioCS program and Beecology websites, and then talking about some lessons that we use in our classrooms and some possibilities for you to adapt lessons on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So an important thing to remember before we start is the difference between native and non-native pollinators. And while many of you have heard about honeybees and their importance in our lives, it's true. But honeybees are non-native pollinators. And so they're extremely important because they pollinate the crops that we eat. Bumblebees, which is what we have focused on in this part of the curriculum, are extremely important because they are native pollinators and they maintain the biodiversity of our ecosystem. So they have slightly different roles, but both are very important.
And we're also going to hopefully focus on that the bees are not the only pollinators. There are many other pollinators, as we've always discussed in our meetings with the Beecology project. But our students, believe it or not, at least in the high school where I'm from, they know that they are bees and they're honeybees, but they don't really know how to recognize them. So that's why we place these pictures over here, the fuzzy yellow and black bumblebee versus, the honeybee. And as Jen said, they are crucial for the ecosystem, but they have different roles in the ecosystem.
So when we look at, you know what, my black bar is in the way, so I can't even see what this slide says. Don't you hate it when that happens? The BioCS Bridge project is a project that was started at WPI, or Worcester Polytechnical Institute. And the whole idea behind this was to get students to stop thinking in boxes, right? So we have students who go to science class and then students who go to computer science class. And this was more of a method to break free of that itemized list of classes and to get students organized and thinking about how computer science can help us do science. So we're integrating science and this computational thinking in the curriculum for high schools, and now we're moving it to middle schools as well. Mm-hmm. Our motivation was this pollinator problem and trying to get students to participate in citizen science as well as researching native pollinators. And we got together a group of high school teachers, college professors, and high school students and college students in order to come up with these different curricula that we're looking at today. And it integrates these ecological concepts and these computational concepts.
Believe it or not, when we started this, I was like, how are they going to mix these two things together? And how am I going to do this in the classroom? I have no time, right? Is my main thing. But the computational thinking is really important and very much related to our scientific thinking, right? They are different, but they are related, and they are definitely not an addition to your curriculum, but a complement to your curriculum.
So here's kind of how they work together. A visual about the biology or ecology components as well as the computer science components. And honestly, when I started in this program about 5 years ago, I didn't know anything about computer science, and I was terrified about learning about computer science. My background is, biology, ecology, and so it was really scary for me. And I know, Maria, you kind of felt the same way, right? But through this program, it's really relaxed. It's like it's easy to do. So don't be afraid if you're not a computer science person. And if you're a computer science person and not a biology person, also don't be afraid. Mm-hmm. It's for everyone. Right. So when we looked into getting students to understand the background behind why we need to study pollinators and why it's important for us to implement computer science to help us study pollinators, we put together some different PowerPoints that teachers could access, and there are links in here to all these different activities. My computer's being really slow these days, but again, so you'll see that there are all these Google slide decks with different
It's not loading.
subjects on them. Yeah, my internet's pretty slow, I think. But the important thing about these slide decks too is that they do hit Massachusetts biology standards. So if you are a biology teacher or teaching biology to a student at your house, these are right on the mark for these different standards. So you can go right through these slides and look at how biodiversity impacts our ecosystem. And then we can focus mostly, or we're focusing mostly on pollinators. We're looking at different types of pollinating insects as well as hummingbirds, which we do have in this part of the country. And then hopefully looking at some images in order for students to be able to recognize some of the differences and similarities between them.
In here, we also start thinking more holistic, not just the insect, but that mutualistic relationship between the flower and the bee or whichever the pollinator is, and start talking about, you know, why do they relate? Why do a bee gravitate to a particular flower? And I start also talking about then how could a computer scientist, right, a person put that in a computer program that we can then use to do some predictions. So I start from the very beginning thinking, you know, pulling out that knowledge that the student already has, but then starting them to think about, so how could you apply this? You know, you do a lot of computer games, right? How do you relate these that we see in science, we see in our ecosystem? How could you make it work, you know, in an app, in a computer science format?
So then we move into more bee specific information, and this information might be interesting to you folks if you don't know a lot about bumblebees. They are quite different from honeybees. In that only the queen survives the winter, whereas honeybees, the whole hive, or not, you know, like the majority of the hive survives the winter and they live through the winter. That's not the case with bumblebees. Bumblebees are really our only hive population that we have. All these the other native bees that we have live singly.
The students get really interested in that also, seeing the differences between what they all know, like everybody knows about a hive, right? If you think about bees, you don't think about bumblebees. So that's a little bit of a hook, or also for the students to be invested in what we're going to be showing you in a few minutes.
So we show the students this, you know, Bumblebees 101, talk a little bit about bee anatomy, about where their thorax is, where their abdomen is, because that's going to help us identify what species of bee. Also about their face and tongue length, because different bumblebee species have different tongue lengths, which are extremely important because that enables them to pollinate different types of flowers and maintain the biodiversity that's, you know, that's out there. So, you know, a bee with a long tongue is really going to choose longer, more tube-shaped flowers to pollinate, where a bee with a shorter tongue can't pollinate and get nectar from those longer flowers. So they have to choose different species. So it's important to have all of the different species of bumblebee.
And that also starts them then hopefully asking questions about the ecosystem and how we can help that ecosystem to be diverse, biodiverse, because it's not just the one flower that I like. to have in my garden, but how can you have different sources of food for the bees through the whole season?
Mhm. And that's huge. You know, with bees coming out early in the spring, what are they eating? Right? What flowers? Have students think about what flowers are out? What's the earliest flower that we have that comes out? And what's the latest flower that we have that stays out before wintertime that bees could actually access? Here's a nice image of the life cycle. As I was saying, it's only the queen that survives the winter. All the other bees die off. And whereas bumblebees live in hives, they don't have that typical hexagonal hive structure that everyone associates with bees. They make these tiny little honey pots or round little pots, and they live underground. So there are some differences there.
Mhm.
We like
When
to
I-
talk a little bit about pollination because
Yep.
a lot of students don't understand pollination. That's not one of the math standards, unfortunately. So most students have to get a lesson about pollination and what it actually does before they can understand.
And also talk about the nectar versus pollen, because those two are really important for the survival of the bee.
Yep, and bumblebees are really interesting because they actually learn, their short-term memory is extremely good, and they learn how to pollinate flowers the fastest way possible. And therefore, if they have learned, for example, in this slide, how to pollinate that purple flower, they're going to continually look for purple flowers to pollinate, which then transfers the purple pollen to the other purple flowers and allows for a high amount of pollination, as opposed to a honeybee, which just goes to an area and finds nectar or pollen regardless of species of flower, which may actually cross or try to cross-pollinate the different flowers, which is not as successful. So in this image, the purple flowers will be well pollinated, but if the bee goes from, white to yellow to purple to red back to purple, they may not be well pollinated.
Right. And I know you, Jen, you do this too. I take my students outside in my campus. There are not that many flowers, but there are some areas that I have observed that we can go. And when we talk about this in the classroom about pollination and how the bee goes from purple to purple to purple, I try to stay outdoors long enough to they can identify different pollinators. They can identify a bee from a bumblebee, and we talk about that. And next, they can actually observe the bee behavior. So they can actually see the bee hopping around from one white flower to white flower to white flower, right? And once they are done with that, then they may try to attempt a different color flower. So it's something that is observable in the classroom, right? In the outdoor classrooms. And I don't know this group, but if you have a garden, right? Mass agriculture in the classroom has given away quite a few grants to develop your garden. Think about what are you putting in that garden that can increase pollinator survival, right?
And we're going to we'll go through a way to do that too, that where the students can actually research that, which is a ton of fun.
Yeah. All right. We need to.
Perfect. So we need to get the show on the road, right? So life cycle, again, we just saw that. And then we did include a link to a series of bee behavior videos.
So those bee behaviors, there are two main behaviors: pollination, and you're going to hear the bee go, zzz, right? And that shakes the flower, pollen falls up, and then the bee can collect. And then you're going to see the bee just tongue coming into the flower and trying to collect nectar, right? That's the kind of the two main behaviors. Again, if you go outdoors, they can also observe those behaviors, live outdoors.
And I think there are also videos on the website.
Correct. They are. In the
website.
winter time, obviously, we cannot see them. So those videos are a good resource for observation purposes.
So we also we use a lot of lessons around the Beecology website, which is really exciting because there's so much actual data on this website that the students can see and work with and limit and graph and discuss graphs and all kinds of that great nitty-gritty data-driven science. And I like it also because my students actually go out and do some of the citizen science for Beecology. So my school is actually on the map for the website, and you can look it up and it'll say Nipmuc Regional High School, and it'll show the kids that there were actually students who recorded bees at our high school. So they're like, oh, wow, I want to do that too. So it really gets them very excited.
Yep, same here. Also, it is increasingly important to include project-based learning, right? So these type of, I put the link to the Beecology website on the chat, and in here we have many different ways in which you can use this site and the lessons that we're going to be providing you to develop some of these projects, short, sweet, to the point, and quick to do.
Great. So this, you can see there's a whole file folder here of lessons that relate to the Beecology website. And it's so easy also to come up with your own, so fast. So on the Beecology website, there's a web app tutorial. The web app is the app that students would upload, or you, if you want to, would upload your bee sightings to the database, and all those bee sightings get looked at by a scientist and then get put onto the website. And then there's also another biodiversity lesson, and then the observing bee behavior activity. So Maria, did we want to break some folks up into?
So I wanted to just do a couple of things. The observing bee behavior is a lesson that is simply what I was explaining, you know, that you can tell the difference between the bees. You are also observing that nectar collection versus pollen with the students. And then you're going to go to the Beecology website and you are going to enter the data and then analyze data. Jen, do you want to go over the Beecology website quickly so they know what they're going to be doing when they get into their breakout rooms?
Yep.
It's going to take a little bit too. So I have done, I don't know you, I think you do this too, but I have done this with the iPad, with their phone, with a PC. So any one way that you have to access this will work pretty good. Obviously the PC or the iPad are going to give you more real estate so you can see a little bit better what you're doing, but go ahead.
So one of the ways that you can interact with this website is by collecting data. And if you just go up to the right-hand corner, you can explore the data, or you can use this web app. And the web app will actually open. My students use iPads. We're one-to-one with iPads, and so they can't access this app outside. However, we get around that by just going outside and taking videos. So we'll go out, they'll each take videos, and then we'll bring them back to the classroom where we have Wi-Fi and upload it that way.
I do the same thing.
So what you notice when you click on it is it automatically opens up a tutorial about how to upload your image. This year they're starting butterflies also, which is kind of exciting. That's new for us. So butterflies or bumblebees. So you would just follow through these steps to do it. If you want to work or interact with the database, you can choose some different kinds of data that you want. These are all the different types of graphs that you can access. You need to actually choose your data before you get to the graphing part. So you need
Just
to
like
go
in
to
a lab.
data. So yeah, you need to go to data selection first.
So while that opens, this website has a very extensive collection of data for bee sightings, since from data from the museum collections
Mhm.
from way back then to today. So
And
it's a
then-
pretty comprehensive from our area.
Right, and then the data in 2017 was from the beginning, like the launch of this project. So
Right.
that's the observations. And then the other ones are from another database that were loaded into this. But you can see that there's many different categories. You can search by bee type, by bee gender, bee behavior. You could search by flowers or flower shape. So if we select all the bees and both genders of bees that are simply collecting nectar, we should be able to go. Oh,
Filter.
yeah, it was hiding behind my little black zoom bar.
So then it goes through the whole database and it generates these for you.
Mhm. And
So in here
again,
you can analyze that.
Yep, and you can limit these. I mean, it's just, you can download your data, you could have students graph them themselves, you could just, give the students the data. We can analyze this set by location or heat map or like anything, seasonal, floral network, which always tons of fun, because that'll give you which bees you can limit by date. This will help you make your own pollinator garden, by which months you want. And it's going to tell you which species of bees preferred which types of flowers.
This is really nice. It takes a little bit to load because there's a lot of data behind it.
So if you see here the Bombus bimaculatus, it'll show you, if I click on it, it'll show you just its statistics on these different graphs, what it likes.
This is based on your selection at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So also you can do the other way. You can select, oh, I have a milkweed in my backyard. Which bees are going to pollinate those?
And so
it gives you the
my
other
milkweed, right? So I can see, oh, look, this be the Griseocolus, the Perplexus, and the Turricula, like that.
Then you can start asking the students questions. So can you find out which plant gives you the most pollinators in your garden?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you know the range of your plant, when the plant is available, early, mid-season, late season. So you can then start looking at and have them play with it, right? Have them ask the questions, select, and then see the results right away. Right? You can then hypothesize there's a selection for tongue length, for example, or the size of the flower, and you can say, well, if I select all the trumpet or long flowers, the hypothesis is only long tongue bees are the ones that are going to be selected. So you can actually observe that within the database. If you have an unknown, right, but certain characteristics, then you should be able to predict, the plants or whatever that they are going to be able to go to. So some of the lessons that we have provided actually give you the hypothesis, gives you the set of data, and then they have to answer the questions. And then you have an example of quite a few examples actually in some of those lessons. So do we want to have them play with this?
Yeah, I think so. I think hopefully people have it up already. And if we want to take them out, I'm going to stop sharing or pause my sharing. And then we can open some rooms, right? How many people do we have?
You have 10.
10, so we want to do three-ish, 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I know
And
it's
then
not
in
visible.
there, you can, as a group, maybe, I don't know how many of you, I don't know if you are all high school, middle, I don't know your level, but it really doesn't matter. You can, this is applicable to most levels. And you can go through the different, whatever, you want to explore on the Beecology website. And we're going to be hopping around to help you out if you need any help.
All right, so I'll do 3 breakout rooms. That's 3 to 4 people per room.
Yeah. I was saying we're back.
Yeah, you're back and muted.
Happens all the time.
So I hope that you folks had some interesting discussions and got to learn some really neat things.
I have a question for you. You had a lot of things open before. You had a lot of tabs
Yeah.
open before. I mean, are those, I was sort of paying attention and sort of feeling overwhelmed at all of that. And I'm just wondering how, oh, here comes everybody else. Are those links, will those links be, they're probably not part of your slides, I'm guessing.
Some of them will work and some of them won't. We just we recently, the research group behind this whole BioCS bridge is publishing a website which is going to be free for the public, but they're transitioning right now. It was supposed to be up already, so Maria and I were going to be like, yay, here's our website, but it's not up yet. So once it's up, however, it'll have all of the lessons on there, all of the links, all of the standards, all of everything that you would ever need.
So will that, when you send out your email, can that be part of it? Or, I mean, even though it's not up yet, maybe can you, with a qualification that it's not ready yet, but.
I'm not sure it's,
I don't think it's
I'm
public.
Googling it right now. So.
And is Rob Jagir still involved in this, or is it someone else?
He is, yep, no, he is. He is
Oh.
the ecology portion of it.
Okay.
And here is the,
I guess the question is,
that's
how
the
will we
link.
find, yeah, how will we find this? Okay.
That's the link to the website right now. And I'm hoping, I'll share my screen too, but I'm hoping that you can also get that.
So
Yeah.
basically using this BioCS will take you to all those places that you were navigating before.
So this will hopefully, this is what we're looking at for our website. So if you can access this website, you can access what we can access.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I was
not-
telling you.
Yeah,
Because-
I'm not sure that the curriculum is up here yet,
No.
but it will be soon.
Yep.
Is he looking for schools to join? I mean, is this sort of being pilot tested?
This has already been pilot tested. Yeah, so we're all good with it, but we are offering PD for schools. If you want to bring it to your school and have a PD at your school, we're happy to come and do that for you.
Is there a charge for that?
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
And who's the we? You two? You?
Maria and myself.
Oh, wow. So actually, well,
there's
and is
other
your-
team members too. There are definitely
those-
other team members.
Awesome. Where was your contact information at the very beginning? I wrote down your names.
It'll be at it's on the last slide.
Okay, got it.
So we need to link these to computer science, right?
Yes, let's.
So this is the ecology portion in which you're going out there in the field, you're learning about the flowers, the pollinators, you are linking it to climate change, human impact, right? All of these different links depending on your interest. But then how do we translate this research information into something that you can actually put in a form format that you can make a hypothesis and test it and analyze, right? That which is the part that the computer science part of it helps in part. And in the other part, they can also recreate what they see. If you're a computer scientist, that you can, do the code stuff, right? You have your agents, which are your bee, your flower, and the hawk, or whatever the conditions are. And you can use, Jen is going to show you in a minute, the website that not the website,
So
the
we
site
use
that we use for that. And then you can link science, computer science and biology and analysis.
right. So we use Star Logo Nova, although if you are a computer science teacher, like there's all kinds of other lessons that we have for different sims and creating websites and all that stuff. But Maria and I, as biologists, we started out a little scared of this. So this is what I like, and it's what I like to stick with. But you can go to this site, Star Logo Nova.
Do you want to put the link in the chat?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Put the orient.
They changed the
that one, and then if that doesn't work, you can just go to their website. But I think it should work. This is the one that I use with my students.
Do you want to make it bigger, Jen, so it's easier to see? Zoom in.
Well, you want everything.
Hey,
Oh,
my
no.
little eyes. Control plus.
Yeah, no, I was making the chat bigger for myself by accident. Anyway, so this is the one that I like to use with my environmental science students. And we look at modeling ecosystems and why people would actually want to model an ecosystem. And some of that is because we just can't spend the time in the field that we need to spend in the field, right? So that we might want a simulation to model it. So I have all my students register for a Star Logo Nova account just using their school email. And this walks them through the different components of the Star Logo sim. It tells them about the space. It tells them about the different agents, about the widgets, the graphs. And then it gives them the link. And you folks can all
This is what we're gonna do
go
now.
to this link.
So in here, when you have an iPad, you need to put the iPad landscape so you can see the whole thing, just saying, if you're a teacher. And you can have, as you can see on the left-hand side, there are the different things that you can control. The number of bees, the number of red flowers, the number of blue flowers. And then you have the clock, which is like ticking time, the time the simulation is going to take. And
Right,
then
so
it will give you as a result, there you go, your computer is slow.
Oh no, I just ran it.
So you can see it in 3D, and then you can see the what is happening, and the graph is going to give you results real time. The cool thing here is that if you change these numbers, the number of bees, the number of flowers, red and blue flowers, each time the iteration is different. So because a student has the same numbers, it's not going to have exactly the same results, which is kind of neat in the classroom.
It's actually really important. And I just learned that because I was starting to use gizmos with my students.
Mhm.
And it's so cookie cutter that every time you run it, it's the same answer. So it's not really, it's not a simulation. Like this is a real simulation in the fact that there are variables that depending upon how those variables play out, you'll get different results every single time that you run this.
Mhm.
So we have the students make hypotheses about, how is this going to change? And then they can graph it themselves and then, average their answers, graph it themselves and figure it out.
Also, the other part that I liked very much from Robert Jiguier, he talked about this, that they actually use real data to make this simulation from the field. So it's a very likely, as best as we can, right, scenario. If you want to scroll up and show is it when you scroll up that you can see the code?
Yeah, you have to press view code.
View code.
Here comes.
So if you press view code, you can actually go through the actual code, and the students that are interested can actually change the code, right? They can actually manipulate
As
it
long as they have logged in
to the site, correct?
to this, they can change the code. And it gives them, this one's a really simple code. It's really nice to start with. I actually do start my students in environmental science coding simply. And this is their first introduction to what it should look like. And because it's just a block code, they don't have to actually think about how to write it and like get it exactly right in the parentheses with the periods and the whatever. They can just drag and drop. And if it doesn't fit, then it's clearly the wrong thing to put there. So after my kids go through this and do their hypothesis testing, they have to look in the code to figure out what makes what happen. So, if you look at the bee, for example, like what makes the bee change color? So which ones of these codes is the one for color? And the kids will go, set my color to my pollen color. And that's what changes the bee's color. So after they've gone through this whole thing, I give them actual articles, not like journal articles from like kids' journals, and they have to create their own simulation based on that article. So they've got to use the data that they have gotten from the article and create a code. And they're really simplistic, and sometimes they don't work. Actually, a lot of times they don't work, but it's fine because the students are learning about coding and about the logics behind it and the system. It just helps them really understand the system better.
I haven't done that because I am a chicken and I don't code, but I have learned with my students, I have taught them that this is what makes that simulation run. And that is not a random simulation. These little numbers that you see on the code are based on the data in the field. So a field scientist gathers the data and a computer scientist converts it into the code that works the way the ecologists see it, for the most part.
And I think that's the important part too here is that no scientist works in a silo, right? We all work together, and computer scientists and field scientists have to have an understanding of each other's work in order for this science to get done. So it's really important for students to understand that even if they're a field scientist, they probably should understand something about computer science. And or if they're a computer scientist, they really need to understand something about field science if that's what they're coding for.
And when they run their hypotheses, when you're thinking about what ifs, right? If you go up in the simulation and you say, so what if I have the maximum number of bees, right? What if I have the maximum number of bees in this simulation and I keep the flowers at maximum, right? Then you're starting also to think about experiments, right? What are my controls? What are my variables? What is my question? How should I set this up to answer the question that I have. And it is a lot easier to do a simulation and that thinking process than when you're trying to do, like in our case, in a science classroom, you're doing an experiment on the bench and they don't know what they're doing and they're just not thinking. They're just putting things together, getting a result and not knowing what it means. Or the same, you guys that are in the farm, right? You have to think about more, it's a holistic thinking process, right? You have to think about placement. You have to think about water sources. You have to think about the soil and how the soil is prepared, right? The plant is not going to grow if it doesn't have certain conditions for growth. And if the plant doesn't grow, the pollinator is not going to come, right? So you have, this is the kind of thinking, especially in the middle school, high school science curriculum that we're trying to train them to think about. And the simulation is fun. They think they're playing. They see live the graphing and they can actually analyze it, right? Oh, if this was big, then that graph number should be high, right? If I have more pollinators, I should have more flowers. Did that happen? Right? Or why it didn't?
Yeah, not only did it happen, it supported more mice and more hawks. Right.
Exactly.
So last time my hawks died out and this time I have hawks. So the bee, right, is responsible for all the populations, right? They're the keystone species. So they're responsible for all the populations in the ecosystem.
Mhm. So do you guys, I think we should open these to questions and see what are your take homes, messages, and if you have anything else that you can share on how you are thinking about using it, or what did it trigger on you, you know? How can we share as a community to see how you're going to, what are you thinking about this, right? How does it apply to you? If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I'm not sure I 100% understand how to use it, but I'm not a high school environmental science teacher, so that's
Well,
why.
so anyone can use it. You don't need to be a high school environmental science teacher. So that's the bonus. It can be used in any discipline. So we just are using pollinators because that's what we study. And that's what our program was based on. But in the Star Logo Nova library, you can find things on disease transmission. You can find things on nutrient cycles, like all different kinds of topics are available inside those simulations to look at.
They're free.
And they're free, yeah. Did you guys all get in?
The chat, Jen and Maria, there's a comment, says, thank you. I'm hoping to use the Beecology website to decide what to plant in our new school pollinator garden. I'd also love to get my middle school garden club involved with citizen science.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, great. That's a fabulous use of this information. And I did get a Mass Agriculture in the Classroom mini grant for my pollinator garden. And I used my students used this information in order to design that garden.
Did you choose certain bees? Like, how did you use it? What were you?
We
that
chose
process?
different plants based on the bees that we saw that were in our region of Massachusetts, and they used their the Beecology website to limit their plants by bee species, and then they had to find plants that flowered all summer long. So we had to start in May and end in like September and find plants so that the bees would have a constant supply of food. And then so we did that and planted our plants. And then of course last summer was such an awful drought Some of our plants didn't make it. But we had a parent who works for, I forget what nursery, and he just donated a bunch of native plants. We went out and figured out which ones were still there and what we needed to replace, and he just brought them all. So we went out and planted them.
Awesome.
So on this slide, we have also, web design and human impact. I mean, web design can be as difficult as, coding for a website. And absolutely, that is not what I do. I've never done that. That's not my wheelhouse. But I do have my kids make Google sites, and they use their school email. And they can make a Google site, and they can advertise, one type of pollinator or one type of flower. What are the benefits? Who are the pollinators that visit that flower? Or, like if I have a dry soil or something, what can I plant there that's going to attract pollinators? So they can make websites that way. I don't have my kids do any other coding but that block coding on the Star Logo site. So some other student project ideas that we have and that we have used and I have used in my class is the invasive species with the iPaint app. So if you have students that have phones or iPads, they can download the, I can't even remember what it stands for. It's invasive species of New England.
Invasive plant atlas.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Invasive Plant Atlas of New England, and you can log like your invasive species that you find either in your yard or on your campus or whatever there. And then we can do Beecology, or iNaturalist is another great site. So if you are in the fall or really early spring and there aren't any bees out, you can go log things with iNaturalist, which is another citizen science app. We have created infographics for hallways in our schools, and we've also made TikToks and other social media like infomercial type things. But again, I teach high school, so that might be a little bit different. But certainly we've researched and created a pollinator garden and helped facilitate the removal of invasive species on our campus, at least logged them and given our facilities manager the heads up that they're not good species. But certainly helping in town. If you had some people in town who wanted to create a pollinator garden, that would be a great thing to piggyback on, to have students help do that.
If I may add, we also have done the did you know and posted or send an email to the staff. Did you know that we have these types of species are in our campus? Did you know that you could do this at this time of the year? Did you, through especially in my garden club, right? Things that we learn, then we make it public to the school community.
Great. So maybe if everybody wants to put in a way that they're thinking of using this. I know Catherine did, and Lori did too. But if
or a nugget of information that you learned today, right? That would be something that would help us know, in which direction this took your thoughts.
Yep. And then any questions that you folks might have for us.
And you can use the chat, or you can use just say it out loud. When we go to the classroom, we've done another seminar, we actually are hands-on with a lesson on how you would do it, in the classroom, and how you log in and help everybody to to go through the whole one lesson, for example, so you can have the full experience of using the site and feel more comfortable. It's a little bit difficult online, like in this format, right, to be able to help each other, but
You have a few things in the chat, Maria and Jen. You have, I'm hoping to use this to monitor what species of bees are visiting a pollinator garden at the farm. And I love the CS connection. Looking forward to working with Star Logo again. And I'm going to share this resource through with Mass Farmer schools around. I love the idea of having students use data in their school garden design, you know, and it's a great resource. And
Oh,
then
yeah, and then Brian, says you're gonna start planting some native plants and flowers. I think that's a great idea. Help draw those pollinators to your vegetable garden. Great, thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
well, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, you have our contact information. You can contact either of us or Farm to School or anyone, and they will relay the information to us, and we'll do our best to get back to you guys.
And Maria and Jen, thank you so much. For people who want to go to the next session on pollinator school garden design next Tuesday, we have someone who's going to be also from 4 to 5:30 talking about pollinator school garden design, but it can be anywhere pollinator garden design. Doesn't have to be a school setting, but that's our focus. So, and we'll be sending this recording and the slide deck out to all participants and everyone who registered, and feel free to share it with your colleagues as well.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you very much.